Stay tuned for our interview with Tablet Command co-founder Andy Bozzo. Hello and welcome to the Situation Awareness Matters Show, episode 394. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway. The purpose of this show is to improve situational awareness and decision-making for individuals and teams who work in high-risk, high-consequence, time-compressed environments with changing conditions. The SA Matters mission is simple. We want to help you see the bad things coming in time to prevent bad outcomes. Today's feature segment is sponsored by Gassaway Virtual Training. There are 33 online training programs there for you to choose from. Some of the programs are live events that I present virtually, and some of them are pre-recorded programs. To learn more, visit the samatters.com website and click on the Virtual Training tab. Okay, let's jump into our feature segment, my interview with Tablet Command co-founder Andy Bozzo. Andy is a passionate and charismatic fire service professional who has 25 years of service experience in California and Washington State. He has a visionary mind which led him to conceive Tablet Command after playing the game Words and Friends, an online drop and drag word formation game. He's provided many of the concepts that are part of Tablet Command, a leading emergency incident management software company that has been adopted in the United States and Canada. Hey everyone, welcome to this special episode of the Situational Awareness Matters Show. I'm your host, Rich Gassaway, and today we have Andy Bozzo, the co-founder of Tablet Command. Now, if you're not familiar with Tablet Command, let me just take a minute to kind of get you up to speed. Tablet Command is a mobile incident command and response solution that increases situational awareness, speeds incident response, streamlines incident management, and improves firefighter accountability. With Tablet Command, an incident commander can tap and drag responding apparatus onto the emergency scene, track progress against critical tasks or checklists, and timestamp every maneuver and benchmark throughout the incident. Tablet Command is also a complete MDT replacement with features tailored to the needs of the fire service. It's a game changer, and it's about the only product like this that I know that is out there that is accomplishing all that I would want to see accomplished in the area of situational awareness for the use of technology on incident scenes. So I was really excited to be able to get Andy onto the show today. So Andy, welcome to the Situational Awareness Matters Show.
Thank you, Chief Gassaway. It's a pleasure to be here, and I am really excited to talk about Tablet Command, and it's just great hearing you talk about how there is nothing else out there. And I'm speaking as a 25-year firefighter. I'm still on the job. I'm working as an acting battalion chief right now, and I work for a fairly active fire department in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're going to about a working fire or two a day, in addition to all the madness that comes along with summertime. So, you know, we're getting our urban reps in, but we're also getting our urban, rural, and WUI interface reps in every day. It's like 95 degrees outside right now, and it's you know, this is a cool day for us. You know, so whether our guys are wearing turnouts, or our guys and gals are wearing turnouts, or brush gear, or both, in the middle of the day, this software is something that they're living in, I'm living in as an acting battalion chief, and in my former life as a captain, both from the mobile version, and also the version that appears on tablets as our MDT replacement that also transitions into an incident management platform really seamlessly. So it's something that I'm working on, but also actively living, evaluating, scrutinizing, you know, and putting it in front of my most, I'd say, scrutinous peers out there that can take stabs at it and poke holes in it. We've been at it since about, conceptually since about 2009, 2010, but we've been in the ecosystem as a real product since 2013. So a lot going on.
Well, let's start with how you got started in the fire service, Andy. Where did it all begin for you?
It all began for me when I was 5 years old, and I think a lot. I think a lot of people will say that. And I lived in somewhat of a suburban/rural part of California, and literally the mountainside behind our house went up in flames. And then there was a Cal Fire response, and this was in, I don't know, 1972, 1973. I'm probably dating myself. Actually, I was 5 years old. It was 1976 is when that mountainside went up. And, I watched all that equipment, all those planes, those helicopters, those folks marching in, all those engines on structure protection, seeing the red slurry come out of the back of an air tanker, and it just really inspired me. And that was obviously further inspired by visits to the fire station as a little kid. And finally, I kind of went down the academic route growing up. I was pretty good in school and pretty good in sports. And so I kind of went down the student athlete route through college, and thought, well, all right, maybe I'm going to go be a doctor. Maybe I'm going to be a teacher. Maybe college boy and firefighter don't really match up very well. So I started out as a teacher and a coach, but I always was kind of looking over the fence, at becoming a firefighter, but sort of from a distance and sort of intimidated by, in the early 90s, when I came out of college in mid 90s, there were 5,000, 10,000 people applying for jobs that were very minimal. It was hard to get hired, and it was a very competitive process. And, it wasn't until I started going to grad school that I needed to make some money. So I started working for Cal Fire, and literally I was trying to work for Cal Fire in our 4 days, our 96-hour shift. And then in my 3 days off, I was attending grad school courses. And I think about 2 weeks into it, and after about my first fire and that first whiff of brush fire smoke, and I just said, this is for me. Some people would say this is not for me. That love affair that was kindled, pardon the terrible pun, when I was a little kid was really just further ignited when I started with Cal Fire. So that was back in 1998. I got married and in 99, and we moved up to Washington State. And the reason that's significant is I took a bunch of tests up there, and I ended up on a bunch of lists, eventually landing at what is now called Puget Sound Fire, which is a fantastic fire department with incredibly trained, well-trained firefighters. And I incidentally had also landed on the list for Tacoma Fire Department. And so I started with Puget Sound Fire. About 2.5 years into it, I got a call from Tacoma saying, your name's up on the list. Do you want to come? And I was living in Tacoma at the time. And Tacoma, had been around, the fire department had been around since 1883. And I thought, I pretty much thought Washington State was going to be our landing spot. I said, all right, if I'm going to be a firefighter, I want to do it in the oldest city I possibly can. And so I was a little bit mid on the list in Seattle, and Tacoma was the one that was ready to take me. And it was a sad departure from Puget Sound Fire because, again, like fantastic professionals, but I really wanted to be in an environment that was going to be, pretty old. And so I was there until, again, doing what my wife tells me to do. She got sick of the weather in the Pacific Northwest. And after about 4.5 years, we moved back to California, and sort of that dream job of urban-rural interface and urban firefighting and all the other things came together for me in Contra Costa County Fire in 2007. And that's where I've been ever since. That's probably where I'm going to stay, until I retire. I'm really loving it. And what Contra Costa, offers, and it's like one of the larger departments in the Bay Area that nobody has heard of, unless you're a Bay Area resident. For example, my sister-in-law for whatever reason, she's a fire aficionado. She's like, boy, you guys are busy. You had a 4 alarm the other night. Now you got this big brush fire. And so we're pretty busy little fire department, or little, we're about 35-ish stations in the San Francisco Bay Area, in the East Bay. And it's funny to joke that on one side of the district, today, literally, it's about 72-ish to 75 degrees. On the other side of the district, it's about 105 degrees. And so there's a huge range. We're also along a waterway, and we have tons of oil refineries. We have ships going back and forth in our waterways. So we have marine operations. We have bulldozers. We have helicopters. We have wildland engines and urban engines, tillered trucks. So it's kind of your typical California County Fire Department. And I have really enjoyed my time there. I'm currently working as an acting battalion chief in Battalion 7, but I came off of about 6-7 years on the USAR company doing that. So dangling from ropes and sending people over the edge on ropes and down deep holes and things like that, in addition to getting our fire reps in and, being on the freeway, extrication, heavy rescue, things like that. So it's been I mean, I wish I had 10 lives. I would do this over and over and over again. My son made the remark the other day that, man, Dad, this is the career for you. You always come home happy. You love the guys that you work with, and it's just been a great ride. So that's kind of my fire career in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic. So clearly a practitioner. What
Yeah.
the co-founder, Will Pigeon, and yourself discovered or created Tablet Command. What inspired that? Something had to happen that got you guys scratching your head thinking there's got to be a better way of doing things.
So as I mentioned, I had a few years under my belt when I came to Contra Costa County Fire. And while I was a recruit, and Will was about 6 months ahead of me, while I was a recruit in the academy, I've been to several structure fires as a firefighter in Tacoma. And a lot of them were bread and butter residential structure fires, a few apartment fires and some stuff up high and that kind of thing. But for the most part, a lot of residential structure fires. And in 2007, while I was a recruit in the academy at Contra Costa County Fire in July, we had 2 line of duty deaths in a house fire that is something that I'd say most firefighters that are even listening to this podcast have been to over and over and over again. And it was a chain of events, some beyond our control, and just the massive emotional impact that made, that just sort of sent that really cold shiver down my spine, and I think all of my peers' spines. Like, this can happen to me, and it can happen. You cross-reference that with I was a firefighter during the cataclysmic 9/11, right? We all saw that in front of our eyes, and we knew, okay, as soon as that was probably going to result in some fatalities, and it did. And we hear about these fatalities around the country, and most of the ones that we hear about, unless you're following NIOSH reports and line of duty deaths, which I think a lot of us do, and probably a lot of your listeners do, they tend to be cataclysmic. And so, like, on one side, I think about 9/11, I think about Worcester, but I also think about Yarnell Hill, and I think about the hot shots from Oregon. I want to say Pine Ridge, but I'm getting it wrong. That perished. And so we think about these large events. But when you think about it, if you work for a department that goes to a significant amount of fires, and you think about the type of building that this happened in and the type of fire that it presented itself, it was just like an all stop, like, whoa, what happened? And it was just a shock. It was a shock to the system. It was scary. Going to the funerals was horrible. I don't wish that on anybody. And then the reports come out in the analytics, and then you look at, the instances where there were deficiencies in not only that fire, but in the same fires across the country. And, we can start banding things around like the NIOSH 5 and, those causal factors that lined up. And we certainly had a long list of those. I think in the end, if I'm getting the number correct, I think it's 116. And I think about 30 of those had to do with incident command and communications, obviously, something that's really important. And so one of the things, now I was just busy working away as a firefighter in West County at the same station where those line of duty deaths occurred about a year and a half later. After it occurred, about a year and a half had passed, and the reports start coming out. And then, like every fire department that has an important injury or line of duty event that spurs change, I was approached by a battalion chief to say, like, hey, you worked for the city of Tacoma, you worked at Puget Sound Fire. They have good reputations of being very progressive. What did you do for accountability? And I'm like, you're talking to me? I'm just a fireman, and he was like, yeah, no, what did you do when you went into a fire? What did you do? I said, all right, well, I have actually a lot of curriculum and material. We used a variation of passport accountability tags, which incidentally, when I was working for CAL FIRE, I was also working as a paid call firefighter, and we had passport accountability tags in 1998. And that was something that was, it was interesting to sort of see that missing in Confire, especially given the amount of reps that we were having. So that was kind of an interesting, excuse me for a second, I'm just going to turn my phone down. That was just an interesting deficiency. So I went home after running calls all night, and I thought, I made a mental note, hey, dig out your curriculum for passport accountability tags. And I think I had, walked through the house. I went to my garage where I kept a lot of files. I think I'll lay money that most people that are listening to your podcast have files and files of curriculum they've studied, whether it's water rescue, confined space trench, and, things that are important. So one of the things that was important was passport accountability. I pulled it out, I glanced at it, I thumbed through it a little bit, set it on my kitchen counter, went to lay down because I've been running calls all night. And I pulled out, my fancy schmancy iPhone 2, and this is not a 2, this is a 14, but I pulled it out and I was like, all right, I got to turn my mind off for a second. And I started playing Words with Friends. And those listeners that are familiar with Words and Friends, you get digitally arranged Scrabble tiles. And, hopefully your younger listeners know what Scrabble is. It's a game that has a letter per tile, and you have a game board, and you slide your tiles up onto the game board and you arrange words. And then in the analog Scrabble, the person sitting across from you spells words against your word, and you build until, you win the game. And this is reminiscent of like Risk, or which was, the big battle game, or Battleship, where you're playing off of each other. Well, Words with Friends is a digital version of that, where you can play against someone anywhere in the world. And it washed over me. It was like I was thinking about accountability and where units are operating on a fire ground, and the fog of war, and communication loss, and garbled communications, and what visual representatives did we have in the analog world at the incident command post at that time. And it's usually like a whiteboard drawing with an Alpha Bravo Charlie Delta, or it was on somebody's notepad, or maybe some creative folks had, like a reproduced tactical worksheet that had a rectangle on it. And here I am, like, playing Words with Friends. I was like, oh my God, someone from across the world knows exactly the 3 or 5 letters that I put on this board, and they're giving me information in reaction to that. Why can't Division 15 know that I just sent them 5 units to their division right now, or 3 units? Or why can't they send them back to me? And every time you touched a tile in Words with Friends too, it would, like, get bigger. And I was like, that's got to be capable of holding information like staffing, time in, time out, air telemetry. So it's just like this huge, like, boom. All right, this is going to change the fire service someday. Do I have the chops to maybe execute this or not? And I kind of like put aside, I was like, no way, man. You don't know anything about starting a business. You don't know anything about computer. I don't code. I don't do any coding. I don't do anything like that. And so I just it just didn't leave me. It gnawed at me and gnawed at me and gnawed at me. And I'm talking about over the course of days and, maybe a couple of weeks. And so finally I said, all right, I'm going to write this thing up as a concept. And so I wrote an email, and I wrote it first as an essay on my laptop. And then I wrote it as an email to Will Pigeon, because he had a background in computer science. And I was aware of it because we had worked together in the last 6 months on another project. And, he's like spreadsheet guy. And, he could just always figure out the cheat code for things on our desktops at work or our MDTs. And, most firefighters are like, that is not for me. I'm not doing that. And this theme will come up later, probably in this podcast, about technology not being for me. So I just was like, look, let's take, these Velcro engines or these magnetic engines that are living on one side of the whiteboard, and let's slide them over to another side of the whiteboard and kind of push some sort of go button that says that they're active and alive in the hazard zone. And so Will got his hands on the idea, and he was like, okay, this is pretty brilliant. But I also recognize you as a Luddite and not a technology guy. So let's go back and forth for a little while. We met, I think, at this, coffee house in Berkeley, and like passed napkins back and forth. No, I think it should look like this. No, I think it should look like that. And then we pulled in an advisor to say, like, look, man, we think we have a concept that could potentially have an effect on firefighters' lives. And he was a technology guy. He goes, where do we go from here? And he sort of guided us in the direction of, why don't you figure out how much it would cost to do what's called what we say is an MVP, or minimum viable product, something that you could put in the hands of incident commanders right away, that they would understand the concepts. And then, maybe you'll know that you have something, maybe you don't, and he was skeptical because like 97% of startups fail. So we did that, and we kind of got a price tag of what it would cost. And we sort of shopped the idea around. It was sort of like, what would you say if you could do this, this, and this all automated? And people were pretty well receptive of that. And so we raised some money in 2012. We're going from like 2010 to 2012 now. Raised some money. Hired a development firm that was partially based in Ireland and then had developers around Europe. And that part was kind of important too, because, Ireland actually they were based in, they were based in Ireland, but Ireland, unfortunately or fortunately, has a pretty good grasp of emergency response, unfortunately, because of the strife that they went through in the 70s and 80s between Northern Ireland and Ireland. So like trauma response is really good. Structural response is good. Structure fire response is good. And so that incident response thing, the developers, we didn't have to explain what a fire department is or what a fire department does. They got that. So that was, and that's actually something, as we shopped around from development shop to development shop around the world, that was something that we took for granted. We were like, firefighters, someone sounds a fire alarm or they call 911, and, in some places like, what's 911? So it was important to have, sort of an understanding of that from our developers. And by 2013, we had what I will call a digital tactical worksheet that was a free version. And then we actually had like a paid premium version on the App Store, and we launched it. We got a lot of attention for it. We got a lot of attention at Firehouse World for it. And the biggest feedback we got between the IAFC Technology Symposium, which was in Coronado that year, and Firehouse was, you nailed it. But this was a big but. It has to be CAD integrated, because I am not going to search through a catalog of battalions and start manually adding units, which to me was ironic, because most people listen to a radio and manually scribe units anyway, or scribe from the run sheet down to a whiteboard anyway. So it was kind of ironic. And I would say, kind of the rest is a little bit history. We did another IAFC event where this is kind of an interesting part. So in the state of California, we would take anybody. We would take anyone on as a customer. It didn't matter where they were from, but state of California was an easy reach that we could, we said, look, the kind of customer service we're going to offer, we will drive down or fly to you and sweep your porch. We'll do whatever it takes to make sure that this technology works. So we did this event called IAFC Connections, where you basically speed dated with 10 fire departments. You had 45 minutes with an executive staff from each fire department. And they were from all over the country, but it happened to occur in California. So 2 departments that attended were Oceanside, which is, a very active fire department in the North San Diego County region. They go to a lot of fires. They do a lot of wildland urban interface. They have a lot of trauma on I-5, and they're pretty old school and aggressive. And then Stockton Fire Department is sort of the Northern California version of that. A smaller city, but pretty aggressive, pretty active, lots of fires, at least a working fire a day, in the department. And again, well known for being very salty, very old school. And we thought, we're just going to talk about football and figure out where we're going to drink beers later on tonight with these guys. They're not going to want this product. This is going to be more for like I'm just rattling like a Puget Sound fire, a Fairfax County, a Charlotte, North Carolina, departments that had, or a Tualatin Valley, like departments that had a reputation of being progressive. But to get the salty guys, that was going to take a lot longer time. And ironically, they were the first 2. And Oceanside is part of a larger JPA, Stockton first alone, and then part of a larger JPA later. They were our first 2 enterprise customers. In addition, there are a few horses that crossed the finish line pretty close to one another, but they were some of the first. I would say pioneer customers. And we were shocked. And so we thought, that's kind of a litmus test. Like, if these leather helmet wearing old schoolers, if this is resonating with them, then maybe this will resonate with the larger population of fire service around the United States and Canada, and then hopefully someday beyond. So that's kind of the origin in a nutshell. It really comes from the line of duty death reports from our own incident, combined with line of duty death reports from across the country, where that NIOSH 5 came into play. The communications, there was a lack of command structure, there wasn't accountability, or they weren't operating within their policies and procedures to install immediate accountability and get into the ICS system early on a fire. So it's like bread and butter fire turns into disaster, has played itself out every year because of, and then, those incident commanders that were like, oh, I got it all right here because it's just a 1 alarm assignment. Then somebody goes into a basement, and then the profile of that incident changes dynamically. And so then what we tried to provide, and what we are continuing to provide, is a product that enters early but does not interfere, so that your who's doing what, when, and where is sort of at least figured out for you to a certain degree, without you having to do a lot of scribing and scribbling and listening and gathering. Because if something bad happens, you at least have a starting point to get people either out of the building and get them accounted for very quickly. So that's what our mission is.
Mm-hmm. What when we had met a couple of days ago and did kind of like a product review, and in that you talked a lot about accountability and situational awareness as how your product enhances or improves the development of SA and improves accountability. Why is accountability and situational awareness so important for the responders and for incident command in general?
Yeah, I mean, knowing who is doing what, when, and where, knowing what you have at your disposal from a resource standpoint is huge. Those opening moments of an incident, a lot of chaos happens. Folks are running to their rigs, people on medical calls are jumping on, other rigs are getting kicked off because of that. And so an incident commander arrives, and most incident commanders in the United  myself included, are basically managing, I don't know how many inputs. You're navigating to the call. You're trying not to get tagged by a citizen. You're moving cars out of the way as you're navigating the call. So you're looking at directions. You're listening to radio reports, and you're trying to piece together a picture in your head as you're getting there. And so to then have to run around to the back of your rig, open up the doors, just the physical act of opening up the doors, the run sheet, scribbling down the run sheet, calling back to dispatch. Well, okay, but who is actually there? Give me that. You're looking, people are coming to the command post. You're seeing people throwing ladders. You're seeing people drag hose into a building. You're assuming command. There's a lot happening. So it's easy, very much easy to call that the fog of war. By the time you end up on the other side of that, that could be too late. So to have some of those things solved for you right away, and Tablet Command does something really elegant. By being CAD integrated, it doesn't matter if the first due that was on a medical and then suddenly comes available pops onto your call, because that gets updated, immediately in near real time. So just having an accurate accountability of who's responding, who's been dispatched still, maybe they didn't hear the dispatch, maybe they're training. That in itself contributes to that situational awareness of your run order and what resources you're going to have at your disposal to execute your strategy and tasks. So and tactics. So that's a really, we get that incident commander ahead of the game. One of the other things, you read off that we are notification, and I would say we're early notification. A lot of times I just got back from Charlotte Fire Department and sat down with a few of their battalion chiefs that said they can be in their rigs, lights running down the street before station tones go off because they got alerted by Tablet Command. And that's true with a lot of our customers around the country. And when you think about just in the residential structure fire setting, petrochemical fuels are now out. Well, I'm sitting right now in a chair that is mostly petrochemical fuels. That comparison of, the 3 minutes that you have to escape today versus the 17 minutes that you had in legacy fuels. If we can have engine companies even 30 seconds ahead of the game, that greatly enhances a rescue profile. That greatly enhances, when water does get on that fire, from a confinement standpoint. So in that aspect, that's also what we're bringing. But I didn't want to get too outside of the lane. You wanted me to talk more about accountability and situational awareness and just having an accurate run card and knowing that staffing in real time, if our customers choose that staffing integration as well. And then all of it is time-stamped, so from the time that they are dispatched to that when they arrive on call to on scene to when you assign them to a particular task to when you take them off that task and put them in rehab or some other part of the incident, that's all time-stamped, so that, we can pan back, you've got the personnel accountability in terms of engine 5's on the second floor on fire attack to the accountability of, it took the truck company 17 minutes to get a hole in the roof. Why was that? Now, you have that in the palm of your hand, where before you didn't really have that sort of time stamping unless you did a real deep dive with your dispatch center. Now you just have it. And so you can grab that truck company on scene and he can say, Chief, there were 12,000 kilovolt power lines right there. We had to redeploy our truck and throw ground ladders. Oh, fair enough. Okay, let's add that to our slide tray in this neighborhood next time we have a fire here. So it just opens up the shades on things that we were previously in the dark about.
Yeah, makes sense. How, your product obviously technology based. How has technology changed in ways in which incident commanders respond to and manage incidents? For the most part, I've been retired now for more than 10 years, but for the most part at that time, it was pretty much paper-based.
Yes.
And it's migrating to technology-based. For some old school folks, that might be kicking and dragging, and we'll talk a little bit in a little bit about objections that people might have to your product or to technology in general. But how has the technology changed the way commanders respond and manage incidents?
So my humble opinion is that technology has become more intuitive, even in those 10 years and even in the last 2 years, to where those old school incident commanders have much easier access to what I like to refer to, and I like to fit tablet command to, as called at-a-glance technology. So one of the most important things that Will and I set out to do early on, even with regard to the graphics of the first versions of tablet command, was to make it really look almost like that paper and pencil based system. We wanted it to be recognizable to you. That's like, okay, yeah, I see it's on an iPad now, but I do recognize where you're going with this. So the first leap that we wanted to make, we didn't want to make a very big leap at first. The first thing we want to do is make that interface as recognizable and as intuitive as we could. And so we actually gathered a group of old salts in a room at one point early in the life cycle of this product. And we said, we bribed them with food and coffee and steaks and all sorts of things. And we put the product in front of them and said, okay, what do you think this screen represents? And we got, feedback from 20 different guys. And then we moved on to the next group and said, well, what do you think this icon does? And what we learned along the way, what I learned, especially is, the importance of what's called alpha testing. And you could actually even take this model into introducing rubber jacketed hose or 2.5-inch hose, or now I've never heard of 2.25-inch hose until a couple of days ago. And you can do this with anything, but technology, it seems to work. It's like what I think is it matching the perception of what you think? Because honestly, Chief, if you weren't going to get it, then we didn't want to bother wasting our time. Here you are, you've been on the job a long time. It needed to look recognizable to you. And I have a very funny story about, so we did that alpha testing, and then we had the idea to go visit San Francisco Fire Department, which is one of the older fire departments west of the Mississippi, and who is a customer, by the way. And we visited a battalion or a division chief at the time of training, but long reputation of being very active and very good. And he was also not a BS artist. He was going to shoot you dead eye straight in terms of what he thought about. So we showed up, and I don't know if they're swearing on this podcast or not, and I would only do it. Okay, I won't do it. I'll substitute.
I'll have to bleep it if you do it.
Yeah, I'll substitute. Because I've told this story in the rated R version. I've told it in the rated G version, so I can do that. So we walked in, and literally before 5 seconds didn't go by where he just said, literally, all right, sit down, show me your stuff, and I'm going to tell you what's messed up about it. And so we showed it to him, and our intention in that was, are we caught up in the weeds of what we think will be well received by a fire service that is a mixture of old salt and progression? And are we meeting in the middle? And at the end of the meeting, he goes, you know what? Actually, you guys kind of nailed it. And that's been so replicating the analog, replicating the pencil and paper, replicating the Velcro tags, putting out visuals that seem to make sense, and then providing, backstopping that with a lot of training and a lot of reinforcement from other referential customers has been a really important part of our company. So that's how we've overcome that. The other thing is, with our technology, you can get small wins with very few clicks and drags. And that was the most important thing too. So for some of our guys, they said, I don't even want an iPad. Don't give me an iPad. I'm not going to use it. We said, okay, fair enough. But just for now, you can fling it back at me like a frisbee. You can, bury it like a hatchet in my forehead, do whatever you want. But just for now, let me show you this interface. And it was our CAD interface. And, they said, okay. I said, what do you think you need to do to open up a call? Well, do you tap on it? Yeah, you tap on it. Cool. Okay. Can you tell me what units are showing up to your call? Yeah, they're right there. That's a win. That's it. 2 clicks. So and what that accomplished, Chief, is they didn't get on the radio anymore and ask who their second alarm units are. It took a few times and a few gentle reminders and respectful reminders, but it was like, yeah, I don't get on the radio anymore to figure out what my units are because they're all auto-populated right there. That was with 2 clicks of a button. That's a win for us. Now there's some incident commanders there, they're managing on mapping, they're dropping pins, or they have a command staff that's able to do that. And they're all really fluent in the technology. And, whether you're riding solo, you're really looking up at the incident a lot more than you would be if you were doing a lot of riding. And I noticed that in my own behaviors when I would go through simulator training to get ready for captain's tests and VC's tests. It was like, well, okay, I'm in a simulator, so I can just write down and the screaming lady, I can tune that out in the simulator setting. But, when you get to the real world, and I did have a fire that I was first on where literally a lady was literally screaming, right? And it was just like, you had to go stone cold with that and go back to, training in terms of how to stay calm in that. But, and I don't know if I did a great job or not, but we're just kind of eliminating that head down. I got to write this, but we're making it look like what you did 10, 15, 20 years ago.
What are some of the specific features of the software? I know it's got the CAD interface. You've mentioned that. What are some of the other things that you'd want to highlight for listeners and viewers about what Tablet Command can offer to them?
Absolutely. So I will just reiterate it again. Auto population because of CAD integration with real-time units is really important because that solves a lot for you with regard to who's coming to your call. Even if what you do is use that as a list to I don't advocate this, obviously, but even if you use that as a list to write down into a whiteboard, that is a win. That's better than your run sheet that came off the printer. And I'll bet a paycheck on that one. Drop down tactical worksheets that you design as an agency. So we don't tell anybody what your acronyms should be or what your checklist should be. What we do say is, okay, training division or training captain or operations chief or whomever it's going to be, grab your policy book or grab your tactical worksheets. We're going to show you how to replicate those tactical worksheets in Tablet Command. So rather than having to run to the back of the buggy and sort through a file cabinet to grab a residential structure fire tactical worksheet for the San Francisco Fire Department or San Bernardino County, it is right there. It's a push of a button. It drops down automatically. And now you can take those auto-populated units and you can slide them over into their divisions and groups or tasks for that particular incident. Then what we ask them to do is, or we recommend that they do, is pair important incident-specific checklists that are their policies and procedures. So we're basically helping those ops chiefs drive and prioritize those benchmarks that are important to that agency. And so typically what a residential structure fire, and we call it a template because it's a tactical worksheet paired with either one checklist or a series of checklists. So what it does is it prioritizes fire attack, getting that water on the fire, ventilation, getting a whole topside or horizontal ventilation, prioritizes search. It prioritizes getting a RIC company. And these are all shared priorities that we have in one order or another across the country. So we just say, all right, how are you doing it in Jacksonville? So let's just line that up in our tactical worksheet and let's add those checklists that you use in Jacksonville to drive your incident priorities. And then one of the last feature that I'll talk about is just time stamping and a timer. I have seen in my 25-ish, 26-ish years, maybe less than 5% of the time, an incident commander that has a stopwatch. Most of the temporal awareness is coming from either a 10-minute timer or, nowadays they have a clock on their phone, and maybe some were using a watch. But with regard to temporal awareness and how long a unit is inside a building, we're really basing that more off of fire conditions, and we're getting conditions, actions, needs. But to have a timer in the top right corner, and then to also know that when you drag a unit on to a particular task or a division, that they're going to turn a color after a certain amount of time, and those colors are green, yellow, or red, that's going to give you a sense of how long they've been on task and whether they're making any progress. Now, I'm not saying get on the radio and get a conditions, actions, needs. I live and die by that. And I'm going to still stay with that instant technique, for the remainder of my days. I will always want to maintain radio contact with my crew and match what I'm seeing now as an acting battalion chief on the outside, or as, a division supervisor, with what they're feeling and experiencing. So it doesn't replace anything. In fact, Alan Brunacini said, don't throw away the tactical worksheet, celebrate it, because it's been sort of a launch pad for where you've gone with this technology. So those are the features that really leap out. And then we've heard a lot of customers talk about just navigation. The mapping is really rich. You're getting very accurate satellite views of things like roof lines, rooftops, HVAC, topographic features, the way that houses are distributed in a neighborhood, fire hydrants, pre-planned. So those are a lot of the accessory features. But for the person that is, I'd say, cautious about technology, auto population, a drop-down automatic tactical worksheet is what you can live in reliably. And then all those other enhanced features, those may come into your purview someday as a user. They may not. You may just live in those two things, and that's all right with us.
Mm-hmm. Well, I would imagine that out there listening and watching this are some of the Yabbits. And those are the people that are saying, yeah, I hear you, but for us, objection, or for our department, objection. So I'm sure as much as you have had the opportunity to pitch the concept of tablet command, be it to an individual department or to people at a conference, you've heard objections and concerns being raised from these potential clients about the product, or in general, just the use of technology. Mm-hmm. So what are some of these, and what do you say to them that kind of sets their fears or concerns aside?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And the Yabbits are like an assorted donut box. They come in a lot of different forms. Some of it is infrastructure based. So, for example, the San Francisco division chief was it, you guys nailed it, but you will never get past the politics in our incident dispatch center. We get that a lot. And what's happening or out there is a lot of dispatch centers are paired with law enforcement. And there is this perception that because we dwell in a cloud-based environment, our software is cloud-based, and that we're on the iOS operating system primarily. We're migrating over to the Android system as well, and that we're new, just based on being new. Some people are of the ilk of like, we're not going to let Yelp into our dispatch center. We're not going to let Words with Friends into our dispatch center. God knows what you're going to do with all that HIPAA information and this and that. And our Yabbit to that is we follow the highest encryption standards for data security, and our integrations. We have a variety of ways that we can integrate with your dispatching software. But our would-be customers have not always had great experiences with their IT managers. So that's where a lot of the Yabbits come. It's, yeah, I love it. I want it right now, but we're never going to get it past our IT managers. That's probably the biggest one. Some of the other ones are, well, our chief is out of here in 6 months and he's an old schooler. And so, we're never going to get it past this administration. So sometimes we just have to wait around for the administration to change. And sometimes those administrators surprise us. They say, no, I saw you guys on, this or that, or I saw you at FDIC, and I'll get that, for our guys right now. And then, some are, just perceive that they're not technologists. And so we have to do a little bit more evangelical work, if you will, to say we get that. And in our company, we come from a variety of different fire departments. Some old school fire departments in the Midwest, some old school fire departments in the West. We're not a wildland specific product. We are structured firefighters as well. I have a leather helmet. And so we try and overcome some of that. Technology is scary, and that iPad, I'll never believe that an iPad will put my fire out for me. I agree with you. iPads will never put a fire out for you, and they will never, ever make you a better incident commander. That comes with education, that comes with time, that comes with studying, that comes with reps, that comes with, when you're not at work, you're listening to other calls from other agencies. And if some of that information can just be splashed in front of you at your disposal, that's accurate, and give you a few other things that you can glance at to make you that much more aware for your call, your incident, wouldn't that be something? And the yeah, but is we'll never have that in our department. Yeah, but. So their perception. So we have sort of a shock team, if you will. Not really, because they're not shocking, but a lot of times when we get pushback about the data and this and that, we actually have a fairly well organized, I shouldn't say fairly, an extremely well organized technology discovery team that'll sit down with the IT folks and do a lot of allaying of fears. We have retired deputy chiefs that work for us in all spheres that can sit down and talk. Me as a current captain, acting battalion chief, yes, I dreamed it up, co-founded it with Will, but am I going to be effective talking to the chief of the Dallas Fire Department? Maybe a deputy chief is a little more effective doing that. So we have, guys that have seen a lot in their careers, and they've, maybe they've gone to the National Fire Academy, maybe they've gone through the accreditation process, either through ISO or SIPSI, and so we have a lot of people that have been around the block a few times, and that tends to calm the yeah buts as well.
I'm sure they're out there. I think of some of the larger.
Yeah.
We talked a few days ago. You mentioned there's a number of large fire departments that are now Tablet Command customers, and I couldn't help but think that within those departments are those crusty, salty, been a battalion chief for 15 years, and paper has worked fine for me. They might be delusional to think that it has, but and then getting them to embrace the use of technology. I think there are just people out there that are maybe even just like afraid of email. And now they're, you're going to try to convince them that using technology can actually enhance their ability to do their job. But if only they would give you a gift of their open mind, they would see that it does pretty readily.
The conversion stories are great.
Yeah, and without a lot of I can't think of exactly how I want to say it. It works without a lot of. They don't have to be IT specialists to know how to use this. It's when you gave me this product demo a couple of days ago, it's very intuitive as to how to maneuver it.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the product in front of me, but I could very easily see what you were doing to show it to me. And even me, the Luddite that I am, I looked at that and said, geez, I think even I could do that. Yeah. and it was just very easy to follow along, very logical, very intuitive. So for those who might have that anxiety in general about technology, and then especially about technology as it comes to how you manage an incident, I would say if you just would give it an open mind when it's shown to you, demo to you, whatever, then you might see that there's actually a a better way. There's a reason that the world has marched on in the advancement of everything.
Yeah.
Find me a house that has a phone on the wall still.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My house doesn't have it. Everything is cell phone for us. We don't even have a home phone. I want to give the home phone number to those that I never want to hear from.
Yeah,
It
absolutely.
never rings in my house. There is no phone.
Yeah, the same. We don't use our landline. It's just, it says home phone. I just write my cell phone number twice, you know. So or I write my wife's cell phone number.
Yeah, there you go. What's next for Tablet Command? There's got to be some big things on the horizon here.
Well, we are working with some very large organizations on the state level, again, to elevate situational awareness. It's really in certain settings around the United States, it's really important to see every rig and what they're doing at all times, from an emergency response and a resource availability standpoint. So we're working on some of those projects. We're always trying to make contact with new customers in all parts of the country. I just returned from Charlotte, North Carolina, with some of our current customers, and certainly there are just, with the growth of population comes the growth of different regions. I'm sure you can think of a few regions that were a country store that are now, it's a 2 or 3 fire station environment, over the course of a decade. And so, we try to make an impact and speak a lot with those would-be customers. And incidentally, I love those people that my credit card is always open to buy the naysayers a beer. I love those folks to tell me, what's wrong with technology. I say, well, do you fish? Yeah. How do you find the fish? I got this app, and then I look at this other app for weather and this and that. So it's just like, okay, so let's just translate that into, your day at work as well. But we're traveling all over the country. Where you can find us at most fire shows. We have FRI that's coming up. We'll have a booth there. We'll be in Firehouse near our great customer, Columbus, Ohio. So we'll be at Firehouse in the fall in Ohio. And we also have a pretty big web presence or social media presence. And like I said, we love to talk fire because we're all firefighters. And then if we can help that department become more situationally aware through at-a-glance technology, we enjoy those conversations very much. So we have some exciting new features that are on our product roadmap as well. I'm not at liberty to say what they are, but they're pretty big. Well, no, I guess I can say. So splitting crews is really important. You have a lot of 5 and 4 person truck companies out there. Some go topside, some go, inside. So being able to split those crews, that's on the horizon. And then divisional management. So, giving that scenario, I just spoke to a gentleman the other day. He was Division 29 on a high-rise fire, which, for us, not everybody around the country can say that, just like not everybody around the country can say, yeah, I was Division X-ray. And so giving that division soup a set of resources they can manage themselves is really important. And so further expanding that org chart and the ability to manage within that org chart, so that the division and group soups have some autonomy in managing their units as well. But I'd say our biggest mission right now, we really believe in what we're doing. And so sales is our biggest mission. And we're trying to land in all parts of the country and beyond to make that claim. I think we're in over 600, maybe 625 fire departments around the United States and Canada, and looking to continue to grow.
Where could somebody learn more or schedule a product demo? You said you had a social media presence. How can they find you there?
Yep.
So,
So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook or Meta, Threads, Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a YouTube page. And so through all of those, what you'll see frequently, usually on a weekly basis, are either customer testimonials or product features that show you how easy the product is to use. And it can be a specific feature like navigation or managing your first residential structure fire. Then we also have a great website, tabletcommand.com. We have a lot of instructional videos. We have a lot of our longer videos that are documentaries. One of the most compelling is a Marin County crew that was basically trapped by fire, and their battalion chief helped them navigate through Tablet Command to an area of temporary refuge. And it was one of those scenarios where if they had turned left, it could have gone much worse. And he was able to tell them which direction to go. And so that's called One Day in July. But again, I really want to emphasize that Tablet Command has been used to manage the aftermath of hurricanes. It's been used to manage structural collapse. It's been used on countless structure fires around the country. It's not just because we're Californians, it's not just a wildland-based app. In fact, we designed it with structure fires in mind because the inspiration, the spark that ignited it was actually a line of duty death in a residential structure fire for us. So between tabletcommand.com and all of your standard social media channels like YouTube and Instagram, and Threads and Twitter and LinkedIn, and Facebook, you can find out almost on a daily basis something new about Tablet Command, whether it's a new customer or a new feature that we're rolling out. And we look forward to, within our website too, you can sign up for a product demo, either for yourself or for your department. We have a chat feature that enables you to chat with our sales staff that puts you immediately in touch with a product specialist. And our product specialists are only firefighters. They are not software folks. They are firefighters that have had a long storied career or are in the midst of a long storied career. And they will walk you through and they speak your common language.
Okay, Andy, is there anything that you would want to share with the listeners and viewers that you haven't shared yet because I just didn't ask you the right question?
Well, I would just say, and it sort of piggybacks along with, sharing that open mind. I think every fire department deserves to see what's out there with regard to their own incident command needs, because we all have them. I think that's the most important thing, is that, to respect that process of accountability and incident command, and incident management. And, I would just highly encourage, whether you're a captain or a firefighter, to go through the chain of command and see about getting your agency a demo, because we can provide a lot of value for your department. And we are your brothers and sisters in arms in your firefighting efforts as well. One of the other things I'll say is just from a cost savings standpoint, I suffered greatly as a user of Toughbooks and keyboard-based mobile data computers for a long time, as did several of my colleagues. And I'm sure that if everybody closed their eyes, they can think of 5 people right now that swore at their MDT or MDC. Those cost about $4,000 to $6,000, depending on what your department structure is and what sort of sales environment you were in when you purchased those. The cost of a tablet is about 1/5 of that, and it provides functionality beyond Tablet Command. So if you're a rescue person and you want to look at a mechanical advantage, an MA reference really quickly, or you're a hazmat person and you need to look at a plume model, or you're in a wildland or a hurricane setting and you want to look at the latest weather reports, that is so quickly available to you on iPads and other modern tablets. And that in itself should be a selling point for not only our software, but just a more intuitive interface that allows you to look down a lot less than you're looking up. I think that's the goal. You want to look down a lot less than what you're looking at outside of your windshield as you're approaching a call. And when you're on a call, you want to have eyes up and looking at all dynamics that are happening on that incident, only referencing what's easily held in your hand. And so I would just say that if you can get that as an all-in-one package, you should definitely look at Tablet Command. We are, a very supportive, very customer service oriented organization, and we would love to at least have a conversation with you. So I'll end with that.
Thank you. Folks, if you haven't yet seen a demo of Tablet Command, watch the videos, get a demo scheduled. This technology is going to change the way the fire service looks at accountability and looks at situational awareness. And in a very positive way, it's going to make an impact in the safety of on incident scenes for our firefighters. Take a look at it. You've nothing to lose and everything to gain by, again, being open-minded and seeing what technology has to offer that can improve your organization. Andy, thanks for being with me. I really appreciate you giving me the gift of your time today.
It's been my absolute honor. Thank you for having me. And on behalf of co-founder Will Pigeon, who's also our CEO and CTO, and the entire team at Tablet Command that actually makes this product run, we are very grateful to have this platform to tell our story. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy Bozzo, for sharing your passion for improving firefighter safety through the Tablet Command software product. If you've been following along with me on social media for a while, you know that I'm in the middle of a 6-month sabbatical from teaching on the road. Excluding 2 years of the pandemic, where no one was doing any live in-person training at all, I've consistently delivered 90 to 120 programs per year. So taking some time off has helped me to recharge my batteries and helped to remind me of how passionate I am about the topic of situational awareness. That time off has also provided opportunities for our 5 certified master instructors to do some training and deliver some programs as well. And starting next month, as Willie Nelson would say, I'll be on the road again. If you're interested in joining me for an upcoming program, here's where I'll be. On September 23 through 26, I'll be conducting a situational awareness assessment at the Suncor Edmonton Refinery in Edmonton, Alberta. On September 28th, I'll be conducting a facilitated discussion with accident investigators from NIOSH, the National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health, at their headquarters office in Morgantown, West Virginia. These are the investigators that evaluate firefighter line of duty death incidents, and I'm going to help them figure out how to incorporate lessons of situational awareness into their reports. On September 29 and 30, I will be at the Wisconsin Rapids Fire Department in Wisconsin Rapids, Wisconsin. That's a lot of Wisconsins. On October 4th, I'll be at the Colorado Traffic Incident Management Conference in Denver, Colorado. On October 13 and 14, I'll be at the Spotsylvania Volunteer Fire Department in Spotsylvania, Virginia. On November 9 through 12, I'll be attending the International Association of Fire Chiefs Volunteer and Combination Officers Section Symposium in the Sun in Clearwater Beach, Florida. There I will be presenting the Emerging Leaders Scholarship, which my company, Gasaway Consulting Group, has sponsored now for 10 years. On November 27 through December 1, I will be back at the Sudden Core Edmonton Refinery in Edmonton, Alberta. On December 9, I will be at the Maryland Fire Chiefs Association Conference in Ocean City, Maryland. And then on December 10th, I will be at the Frederick County Fire Department in Frederick, Maryland. If you're interested in hosting a live event or a virtual program, just click on the Contact Us tab at the top of the samatters.com homepage, and I'll give you a call. Finally, remember to check the show notes for how to subscribe to our newsletter and how to follow us on social media. There we share ideas about how to improve situational awareness, how to make better decisions under stress, and how to improve the skills of critical thinking and resilient problem solving. Well, that's it. Episode 394 of the Situational Awareness Matters show is complete. Thank you again to my guest, Andy Bozzo, for sharing some valuable information with us today about Tablet Command. Thank you, our viewers and listeners, for sharing some of your valuable time with me today. I really appreciate your support of the SA Matters mission. Be safe out there, and may the peace of the Lord and strong situational awareness be with you always.
You've been listening to the Situational Awareness Matters show with Dr. Richard Gasaway. If you're interested in learning more about situational awareness, human factors, and decision-making under stress, visit his website, samatters.com. If you're interested in booking Dr. Gasaway for a program, or if you would like to be a guest on his show, click the Contact Us tab at the top of the homepage.